Bitcoin is this concept that is just too far away from a normal person's life. A normal person doesn't even understand finance or like how the banking system works. And Bitcoin is even like light years far away from that. It's just a very strange concept for many people. That's why 90% just haven't understood it yet. And those who get into it mostly get into it for the wrong reasons. Just they want to speculate, and then very quickly they are, have a portfolio of dozens of meme coins or whatever coin. And Bitcoin just survived everything. If you look at the 10-year chart, you compare it to any other asset.
It's just one way. It's Bitcoin. The honey badger doesn't care what government approves it, what government bans it. It just does its own thing. TikTok next block. Here we go. Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button, which is the easiest way you could show your support for the show and help it grow, as well as making sure you don't miss out any of the future episodes. And also, I'm proud to announce that my newly launched Become Unruggable Bitcoin Self-Custody Mentorship program is now live. So if you've been looking for a Bitcoin mentor to help you get your Bitcoin into self-custody, I'm now available to work with you one-on-one. Check out the show notes down below for all the different contact details, email, X, Noster, whatever you prefer. And also a big shout out to StampSeed for sponsoring the show. Check out stampseed.com for more information. And now let's get the episode underway. Enjoy. Welcome back to Your Bitcoin Story, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of Bitcoin through the stories of people shaping its future. I'm your host, Gigi, and today we have the pleasure of being joined by Julian Lineger, the CEO and co-founder of Relai, Switzerland's leading Bitcoin-only platform. Julian's making big waves in the Bitcoin space, and it's no surprise he was named one of the Forbes 30 under 30 back in 2022. In this episode, we'll dig into Julian's journey from startup dreams to building Relai, his vision for making Bitcoin more accessible, and what the future of Bitcoin looks like through his eyes. So let's jump into Julian's Bitcoin story. Julian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Gigi.
It's an absolute pleasure. And thank you for taking a time from your busy days. I'm sure there's a lot happening in Relai at the moment. I see you have been growing significantly. So congrats to all the success to you and the team. And the team is expanding from what I can see.
Thank you. Yeah. It's quite a intense time since we launched Relai in summer 2020. So basically there's always a lot going on. It's true that currently we are focusing a lot on building out the team, expanding the team on many different fronts. It kind of changes in priorities. Currently we're highly focused on the product team. So we're hiring product managers, developers, DevOps engineers. So it's super interesting to build out this team. We've also been hiring in compliance, legal, regulation, and operations. That's something that, is not the most fun part, I would say, but it's definitely...
But it's needed.
It's needed, unfortunately, yeah, because we're in the end a fintech company, so finance, highly regulated in different jurisdictions. And if you want to bring Bitcoin to significant masses, then unfortunately you need to go through this path, and this requires a lot of effort and a lot of great people. So that's why we're hiring there as well. And we used to hire for support people as well end of last year, because we really wanted to get to this next step in terms of customer support experience, which was not great before, unfortunately, but now it is. And so yeah, it's hiring for different teams, but also on the regulatory front and product front and the marketing front, there's a lot going on indeed.
Amazing. Well, I see you're expanding in all fronts, which is great to see. So we'll get into the nits of Relai in just a little bit. But to kick things off, Julian, take us back to your early days. Can you share with us your personal journey? How did you discover Bitcoin and what happened ever since then?
Sure. So it was pretty much 10 years ago, actually, when I first got into Bitcoin. It's 2015. I was hanging out with a friend in his living room. We were playing, like, gaming something. He was a computer science student, and I was a psychology and business administration student back then. Not at the same university. He's basically a kind of kindergarten friend of mine.
Nice.
We grew up in the same neighborhood, and then we were just kicking it, and then somehow this topic came up because he had some experience already. He kind of discovered Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies back then. He was also, because he was a nerd, right? He was around darknet, doing shady stuff online, etc. as well. He was a hacker as well, So that these early adopters, I would say, were mostly nerds. I was not one of them. I'm not a techie, still not. Even though now they call me a tech or fintech entrepreneur, but I was never really deep into tech. He was. That's why he discovered Bitcoin and cryptos and blockchain, etc. earlier. And I was fortunate to be with him, and he showed it to me and told me about it. He was really fascinated about the technology, like decentralization, peer-to-peer, independent, etc. I was then more, I was more coming from maybe the financial aspect, or I was looking at it as an asset that lives on the internet, which is scarce and independent from governments and banks, and cannot be just printed and cannot be censored. Is kind of global, neutral. So I was really interested in, there's this type of asset that fluctuates in price as well, like 24/7. You can trade it, you can hold it, you can send it around, you can pay for stuff with it, and it basically cannot be printed. It's scarce, so it should gain in value over the long run. And I thought this is super fascinating, especially because you could hold it yourself. So the self-custodial aspect, and just it being a internet native currency, or sound money, or digital gold, these kind of things. A bit less the tech, but more the asset characteristics were what fascinated me. And that's why I kept being interested in it. I also asked him to buy 1 Bitcoin for me, because for me it was too complicated back then. 2015, you can imagine there was not much out there.
There was no Relai to just download an app and buy some Bitcoin, right?
Exactly. Unfortunately not. That's why we built it later, but it took a few years until we had this idea and executed it. So back then, no, there was really not much. This was even before the Mt. Gox and hack, and there was nothing that is user friendly. So I asked him, can you help me? He bought a Bitcoin for me, held it for me, and a few weeks later, the price spiked from 500 to 550 or something, or maybe 600. And then I told him, sell. So that was basically my first in and out. I made a little bit of money. I thought this was a great move, right? Of course, in hindsight, I should have kept it for 10 years and then it would have 200x. But at least this got me into it, and I was interested, and I kept following the space. And the more I learned about it, the more I really thought this is not only speculation, but this is actually happening. This is a big revolution. And so step by step, I also wanted to make this a career, basically, and wanted to jump into it from a professional point of view as well, not just privately.
Did you do anything before Relai with regards to Bitcoin? Were you a part of some other startups, or kind of how was that transition to, because it's a big step up from buying 1 Bitcoin to launching, so to say, a fintech app and platform for buying Bitcoin?
Yeah, there were 5 years in between. So we launched Relai in summer 2020, and probably summer 2015 was when I first heard about Bitcoin and got in touch with Bitcoin. In between, I spent some time in Silicon Valley. I did an exchange semester there, where kind of my entrepreneurial spark was coming from. And I had to finish my studies. I was in the middle of my studies and didn't really know what to do. While I was studying, I also did some first experience in banking and management consulting. But I figured out that's not really what I want. I don't really want to be part of a big organization. I don't want to be part of a hierarchy. I don't want to do the normal stuff, going from intern to junior to senior, whatever.
The endless ladder of escalation and promotion.
Yeah, I thought this kind of is not for me. But I didn't know what is for me. I didn't really know what is, an entrepreneur, what is startup, etc. Until I went to Silicon Valley, and in this exchange semester there, it was really good for me, because I learned a lot about, what is entrepreneurship, what is startup, venture capital, building a team, having this vision and solving a problem. What is a pitch deck? What is a business plan? All this kind of stuff. I really had no idea before, and I learned a lot there. So I came back early 2018, finished my master's. My master's was in business administration. I tried to focus as much on entrepreneurship as possible as well. But in Switzerland, there were not many courses, unfortunately. But I did it. And then while finishing my master's, I worked in a small management consulting company, and they offered me a full-time job. I also had another big consulting company offer me a full-time job. And also I had this idea or kind of urge to do something myself. So the third option was then basically launching my own consulting company, because that's all I knew. You know, I knew kind of what consulting is, and I was really passionate about Bitcoin, and back then also crypto and altcoins, ICOs and decentralized finance and blockchain and whatever. So I thought these are the two things that I know and I'm passionate about. So I said no to both of these job offerings, which would have been very well paid. And I said yes to this opportunity with zero pay. But then a friend of mine and we started this company. Actually, we're the three of us. So my best friend at the time, myself, and the guy that orange pilled me.
Nice.
So we started this consulting company. But we were super naive, and we had no clue. We had no experience. We had no network. We had no real competency. We had no track record. We had no money. We had nothing. But we started this company. It was fun. We actually all of us put one Bitcoin into the company. Back then, and it was not that. I think back then it was maybe 5K or something to start a company. And then we had some clients, some small local banks that did very small projects with us just to get educated and learn about what it is, and maybe they would put it somewhere on their strategy and start building some products and services for their clients. But it was
just to clarify, it was Bitcoin specific consultancy, right? You guys launched.
It was more
or
like
everything,
crypto.
like blockchain, anything related.
Yeah, early on already, I knew that kind of this corporate blockchain thing is not going to fly. So we stayed away from these things, but everything that was crypto.
Okay.
Crypto assets, because that's also there was no real Bitcoin only narrative back then. It was really all about crypto. And yeah, Bitcoin is great, it's the sound money, etc. But what else is there that we could do with this technology? It was all about, in 2017, 18, it was all about that. What different use cases, Yeah. And so of course the few banks that were somehow interested in this area, in this industry, they were looking for different things, not only Bitcoin. And so yeah, we had some fun projects there. And also out of that company, which was called Bravis, another company then emerged, which is called CCFE, Certified Crypto Finance Expert. It's now actually the leading kind of crypto finance education platform or kind of course in Switzerland for the financial industry. So more than 800 bankers or asset managers have completed this course to learn more about crypto finance. So of course now heavily Bitcoin biased, but still they want to learn about everything. So that's why it's called Crypto Finance Expert. And it's the one that is actually certified by the Swiss Banking Association, Swiss Association for Quality, etc. Because we saw there's a big gap, there's a big need in the market of financial advisors and bankers that they want to get know-how and they want to certify it somehow. They want to have a diploma. Yeah. Bankers don't do anything without getting a certification.
Without certification.
Yeah. And you can actually, it turns out that you can actually ask for a lot of money. So the 3-day course, we ask for 2.5K, and we do this 6 times a year with 20 to 30 people joining. It's actually, it turned out to be a great business, which still running. So the first one, Bravis, the consultancy, pretty quickly identified that we're too young, we're not really the consulting guys, we also didn't really enjoy it as well, and it's just not scalable at all to sell your time, and the interest of banks for kind of consulting on this was not big. And once it would get bigger and bigger, the big consultancy companies would put dozens of people on that industry, on that sector, and then there was no business for us. So we focused a bit more on this CCFE thing, which is going very well still now. But then also very quickly, actually all of this happened within like maybe half a year or a year. We also then focused more on Relai. So Relai, basically the idea I already had end of 2018, but never really followed up, was just doing a little bit here and there, having calls with people that thought the idea was cool, that we're looking for something like that as well, to make it super easy for people to buy Bitcoin, especially beginners who don't really know what it is. Make sure they can also hold the Bitcoin, set up a savings plan, automatic investment, buy, sell, send, receive, everything out of a single, easy, user-friendly and simple app made in Switzerland. So Bitcoin only, self-custodial, made in Switzerland. We're already back then kind of the pillars of what we built this on. But then the whole 2019 was still, working, finishing my studies, and doing all these projects a bit at the side. And then in 2020, we realized that we really want, Adam and myself, so my co-founder and I, that we really wanted to focus on Relai, that there's a big potential there. And so that's where the Relai story really began, because then we said, okay, we quit our jobs, we go for it full time. We make sure that we get some money, some angel investment, and just figure everything out. But still, we were very naive. Still, we didn't have any money. Still, we didn't have any network. Maybe a little bit more, but not much. But yeah, that's where the real story then began, beginning of 2020.
Amazing. And how was that like? How was the journey of building a Bitcoin company in Switzerland in 2025, especially like on the regulatory front? Because I don't think it's that easy to just spin up like a fintech company. How did you kind of manage those challenges, and how were those early days for you and Adam?
Yeah, fortunately, from a regulatory perspective, Bitcoin was not super regulated yet in 2020. Switzerland, anyway, is quite innovation friendly, so it's rather straightforward to start a company also in the fintech space. And we made some decisions that made it easier for us. So we tried to be super lean, to go to market with an MVP as quickly as possible, and ideally without kind of having this full compliance set up, without asking for a license, which costs hundreds of thousands, etc. We wanted to really find ways and made
a product that works
decisions so that we could move fast and lean. One of these decisions was to be Bitcoin only and self-custodial. That makes it super easy, but much easier, because you avoid the complexity that comes with holding, utility or security tokens or any other DeFi tokens, whatever, on behalf of clients. So if you just enable with software clients to hold Bitcoin for themselves, it's much easier from a regulatory perspective. And also we decided to not do everything ourselves. The whole brokerage, we didn't do ourselves. We basically at the beginning only did the front end. And a small backend, so we could make sure that people could have a wallet in their app and set up a savings plan. That was pretty much it at the beginning. So they could buy Bitcoin, set up a savings plan, and have their own wallet. And the actual brokerage, so the exchange, the money exchange, was done by Bitty, the partner company of ours. So that allowed us to go to market very fast with $20K that we raised from 2 angel investors, because we really had no money. Back then we didn't even have the 20K really to start a business. And then with that, with this money for 3 months, basically we really hustled. Adam, my co-founder, did the whole coding and the tech stuff, and I did the rest. And then we went live really in record time within 3 months, and had around 1,000 app downloads in the first month. So we really saw that, okay, there is something now that is worth investing more into that. And the fun fact is that we didn't even have a company. So I used Bravis basically as a company to put it into the App Store, because I still had this company Bravis, but there was no Relai company yet. There was really an app that was called Relai, which caused a lot of complications later on. But it was a fast way for us, so we didn't have to even create the company, get any license, whatever. We just went fast to test whether people even want this thing, right? Turns out they wanted it, so then we raised a bit more money, 300K from several angel investors, probably 10, 12 angel investors, which then allowed us to build up the company, set everything up, and hire 1 or 2 people, 1 dev and 1 marketing person, and then we started to scale it. And then because the market was pretty wild, end of 2020, beginning of 21, we grew pretty fast. We also didn't really have a lot of competitors back then. So we could grow quite quickly in terms of active users and volume and revenue, etc. And also had a few more team members. And then we made also another good decision to introduce a referral program, because we saw that people really like to use the app and they organically refer it to other people. So we figured maybe if we incentivize that, if we reward them with small commissions to bring new clients, then that would accelerate the growth, which is what happened. And through that accelerated growth that we could show, we were then able to raise a substantial VC round, one of the top VCs in Switzerland, and then decided to invest in us. In the seed round, we raised 2.5 million in March 2021. And that's where really a new chapter begins. So you see that there is like in chapters, right? It goes in chapters. First, it was like a hobby, then it was a project, and then it was a real company. And from there, we scaled the thing with VCs, etc.
Yeah, no, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your latest seed round that you had a few months ago, you raised 12 million, right, euros in that one.
Yes, that was our Series A.
Okay, so like it just compounds. So it started from a mere 20K from two angel investors to half a decade later, securing 12 million, and who knows what goes next. So kind of what's the kind of outlook with Relai, going forward, since you're really scaling it up and you're expanding in ways. I mean, I'm sure there's things you can't share, but what you can publicly share, kind of what's your next steps? What's your next goal as a company? Imagine this: the market's crashing, exchanges are freezing withdrawals, but you are cool as a cucumber because you are unruggable. By joining my Become Unruggable mentoring program, you'll get one-on-one support to safely move your Bitcoin into self-custody. I'll guide you step by step at your own pace, as well as making sure you have a rock-solid recovery plan in place. Take control, stay sovereign. Get in touch with me via X, Nostr, or send me an email at becomeunruggable@proton.me, and let's make you unruggable.
Yeah, so basically we are trying to expand in 3 ways, 3 areas. One is product expansion. So we want to, of course, improve the mobile app, the main product that more than 100,000 people use, bring some new features there, react to a demand from our users there, and just make it better, more scalable, faster, more fun, more exciting to use, just more features that people are asking for. But then also introducing the web app. We are now testing it already with first Relai private clients, so the big transactions, 100K upwards, and also businesses. But then we will try to roll it out to everyone, all of the users, so that users can use the mobile and the web app, whatever they want, until the end of this year. And then we're also thinking about, but that might be not this year, but next year, to open our API to other companies. So think about it that way. Basically, other hardware wallets or Bitcoin wallets or other fintechs or just other Bitcoin apps, whatever, they can basically connect to our broker and then offer the easy buying, selling, setting up a savings plan, and even the wallet capability within their app to their communities. That would be one next step to kind of expand through the product. Then secondly, we of course want to expand in terms of customers. So when we first started, we basically had this cap of 1K a day and 100K per year because we were not regulated. So we really only had retail clients. Then we did our broker, we got our broker license, so we could also do KYC on people, and then this opened up the affluent segment. So users that want to invest 5K, 10K, 50K, they could do this with us. And then we moved to Relai private clients as well. So those that want to invest 6 or even 7 digits, we can now do this as well. There's more cumbersome, more complicated onboarding process with that, of course, and more regulatory compliance stuff. But we can do that now, and we have around 300 private clients now onboarded. And also businesses. We started last year with businesses. More than 100 SMEs are now also onboarded, and they have put Bitcoin on their balance sheet in a self-custodial way, which is pretty cool. So
Very
basically,
nice.
we keep expanding on different customer segments. And last but not least, of course, geographically. So we started in Switzerland only. Now we can accept users from the EU, but we cannot actively market or acquire customers in the EU. So with our French company and with the French license, which will turn into a MiCA license, we can hopefully very soon, whenever the regulator gives us the approval in the next few weeks, we hope, then we can really actively go to market in the most important EU markets like Germany, Italy, France, etc. Basically in the whole EU. And then next step would be to do the same in the UK, and then go through Turkey, Middle East, and eventually the whole world, right? Just expanding further. We now have this setup where we have a holding company in Switzerland and then operative companies
Will be registered in different regions.
Exactly. So we now have a company in Switzerland that looks after the Swiss market. We have a French company that will soon get the whole MiCA license, so access to the whole EU. We already now with this company are registered in Italy, so we can be active in Italy already now. And then we will start a company, get the whole banking access and the whole licensing, etc., in the UK, and then from there, Middle East, and so we will just start new companies and get the regional licenses and banking connections needed to serve the regional communities.
Awesome. Yeah, that was my follow-up question. Kind of geographically, are you just fully focused on Europe, or you want to, expand across other regions? Because Europe is a lot of countries, but like the rest of the world is much more. So, but it's good that, kind of you go from steps. You just don't kick off from the get-go. We want to be a global Bitcoin platform, but you focus on your home territory, you slowly expand and go to different regions.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's interesting to go global, and we want to go global at one point. But I think if you expand too early as a startup, it's not going to be effective. If you look at, for example, Facebook, how they scaled, how they grew, they really started with one university where they started their business and had their community of users, and then several universities, and then other schools, and then the whole state of California, and then the whole US, and then the whole world. It's really I think a more effective way to scale, especially also in a highly regulated market, a financial market. We can't just go live with the app in every market because we don't have these licenses. And also Europe is a super, I think, underestimated market. It's a big market. It's a valuable market. More than 400 million people, and big countries like Germany, Italy, France, where there are a lot of people, but also a lot of money that wants to flow into Bitcoin, right? So there's a lot of potential, but not that much competition if you compare to like the US, for example. And it will be even less probably in a year or two because the regulation is quite strict. So it's hard to get this MiCA license. We'll be probably the first one, and maybe one of the only Bitcoin-only companies that will get this license, because it's really super hard. You need to have a certain size. We're now 40 or even close to 50 people. I think you need a certain size and a certain capitalization to go through this whole process of acquiring the license, etc. So I believe in the next 1 or 2 years, there won't be that much competition. And it's a huge market. It's a very valuable market. So that's why I think it makes sense to focus on Europe. But then, of course, whenever we can spare the resources to start a new market, that's what we will do. But first, we wanted to win Switzerland. Now we want to win this year. We want to win the EU, and then hopefully UK and Middle East next year, the year after.
Sounds good. So I want to touch a little bit upon what you mentioned, MiCA, and might be a sensitive question. So sorry in advance, Julian, but What's your personal take on the travel rule, which went into effect across Europe earlier this year, with basically Bitcoiners having to disclose who they're sending their Bitcoin to, the name and address of the individual? I'll just leave it there. What's your personal take on that? I know it has to be done because it's a regulatory compliance aspect, but as a true Bitcoin maxi, what's your personal take on that?
I have to say I'm also no compliance specialist, right? So I'm not entirely sure in details what the travel rule, what it really contains and what the effects are. What I do understand is that whenever you are as a user, whenever you have self-custody, then and you send it to another self-custodial wallet, then the travel rule does not apply. So as long as you're self-custody, so in that sense, it's even kind of forcing the user to learn about self-custody and making it more favorable for users to use self-custody, which I think is great. Of course, I'm not a big fan overall of regulation and over-regulating. I think the financial markets in general, but Bitcoin specifically, is way too over-regulated. We now had to impose, after a long time of going back and forth with the Swiss and also the EU regulators, we now had to impose full KYC on all of our clients, even those that only transact like $50 or $100. Before we had this limit of 1K a day that people could transact without, buy and sell without KYC. That's great. But yeah, the regulation is not going to get less. It's going to get more strict, and therefore we need experts that really go deep and see what can be done. We always try to be at the limit. We don't want to do more than is necessary, but unfortunately we need to do what is necessary. So we pass the audits and we keep the licenses, and we can bring non-custodial Bitcoin to the people. And that's in the end our mission, and that's why we are also going through these regulatory hoops to make this happen. As I understand it, the travel rule mainly applies for custodial exchanges. So whenever you want to withdraw or send from a custodial exchange to another custodial exchange or another wallet whatsoever, then you need to gather all these information. And it's mainly going to be not very user-friendly. It's going to be a pain for the user, of course. But it's mainly also going to be a lot of effort and a lot of cost for these custodial exchanges, which then from
a lot of compliance needs to be done.
Oh yeah,
keeping everything.
The exchanges that are custodial and multi-coin, so like Bitpanda, for example, they have hundreds of different coins and they're custodial. Boy, the MiCA regulation will be bad for them. And in the next year or two, they will add to what they already have. They already probably have 100 or more people working in compliance, but they will need to add to this overhead, and the customer experience will suffer. It will become more expensive because they need to invest more money into that. So I don't think it's going to be fun in the next few years to be a custodial multi-coin exchange. And so from a business perspective, I don't necessarily mind all these regulations because I think they will make life for many of our competitors harder. And for us, because we're Bitcoin only and self-custodial, we are, from a setup perspective, we're like as lean as it gets. And like, for example, the travel rule, we have to apply it from a business perspective, which adds a bit to the overhead. But then because we never hold users' funds, they hold it and then they send it wherever they want. We don't have anything to do with that anymore. We don't care. Whereas Bitpanda, they care because they hold the funds of the users. And when the user wants to send a Bitcoin or any other crypto asset somewhere, then they have to go and check and monitor and collect all these data. So we don't have to to do a lot of this, fortunately.
In a world where water spills, fires rage, and pets chew everything in sight, only one thing can save your Bitcoin seed phrase: StampSeed. Don't let a coffee accident turn your Bitcoin into Bitcoin gone. With StampSeed, your seed phrase is engraved in metal, safe from elements, toddlers, and your own clumsiness. Use promo code BTCSTORY at stampseed.com for 15% off, because in the end, metal always wins. And now, let's get back to the episode. For me to understand, because unfortunately I wasn't able to experience Relai myself because I was based in Cyprus and that country wasn't open to your business. The process is essentially you open an account on Relai, you wire money to your account, and the Bitcoin gets automatically sent to your cold storage. So you need to provide your own Bitcoin address, right? Like nothing is held in my Relai account, right? Like everything, it's just like a switch that happens, right, from your end.
So Relai is a wallet itself, is a self-custodial wallet, and it's also a broker. So yeah, you download the app, you go through a bit of KYC stuff, but it's like 5 minutes, and then you have your account. And then you can say, okay, I want to buy Bitcoin for $100, or I want to set up a savings plan for $200 a month or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in, you send the money, either via bank transfer or a credit card or Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever. And once we get the money, we exchange to Bitcoin and send it to your Relai wallet.
Okay.
So you have everything in one place, which is what mainly the beginners that we are serving, I would say 80%, if not 90% of our users are not like hardcore Bitcoiners, but they're beginners that they just are interested in Bitcoin. They want to get their hands around their first sats, but they don't know where to start. That's where you start, right? You just download the app, create an account, send money, get the Bitcoin. And you can also do that with a hardware wallet that you already have, but most of our users don't. Because they're newcomers, they don't have hardware wallet yet. So most of them start like that, and then later on in their journey, when they are on a savings plan and they amass some Bitcoin, we actually kind of push them as well, or suggest them to buy a hardware wallet. They can buy a hardware wallet they can order one in the app.
Oh, nice.
We have a partnership with Bitbox. And then they get their Bitbox, and then if they want to, they can either just transfer from time to time the sats to the hardware wallet, or they can also connect their hardware wallet. And this is going to become much, much more user-friendly. Now it's a bit of a pain, I must say, but soon it's going to be much more simple and user-friendly for them to connect their hardware wallet to the app. And then they can also set up a savings plan directly to the hardware.
That's really nice. You're kind of targeting the early coiners, which is a super important factor. And on that sense, since your main target, I would say that the main target audience is beginner Bitcoiners. In your opinion, like what's the biggest barrier to Bitcoin adoption today from your experience?
It used to be user friendliness. So it was just too hard to get started. Now I think there's Relai, there are other service providers. Still more work needs to be done, especially also from a backup perspective, like the 12 words, still a barrier, I would say. So people, they're like, yeah, Bitcoin is cool and you can hold it yourself, but then I actually have this responsibility for these 12 words. And it's just it's still this concept of digital money that you hold yourself. You are fully responsible. You have no bank or no exchange or whatever you can call. This is still a bit of a barrier that needs to be resolved. We're also working on that. We're working on connecting the private key to your face. So basically you can, even if as a newcomer you don't write down your 12 words, of course you should, and we're still asking the users to do that. But if they don't and they lose their phone, they can still back up their Bitcoin with their face. So just things like that, I think in the next few years they will become much easier. And then I think the biggest barrier is just that people don't get it yet, don't understand it. It's
We're still too early, right, Julian?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin is this concept, and a lot of people have talked about this. Famous people like Peter Thiel as well, for example. Bitcoin is this concept that is just too far away from a normal person's life. A normal person doesn't even understand finance or like how the banking system works. And Bitcoin is even like light years far away from that. It's just a very strange concept for many people. That's why 90% just haven't understood it yet. And those who get into it mostly get into it for the wrong reasons. Just they want to speculate, and then very quickly they are have a portfolio of dozens of meme coins or whatever coins, and they just chase the quick 10x and try to get rich quick. Or they fall victim to the volatility and like buy at 1K and now sell at 87K, stuff like that. Yeah, but I mean, it's just hard to understand. Bitcoin is very hard to understand. You need to understand it on a quite deep level to develop this commitment to really set up a savings plan and look at it from a 5 to 10 years investment horizon or perspective, I think this just needs way more time. We underestimate, I think, how much time this needs for a critical mass to really get it. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I think everything is here. The infrastructure is there. All sorts of people, from small to big, from poor to wealthy, to even big institutions, to even countries, to businesses. Everyone can get into Bitcoin, and they will. But the barrier or the problem is just that most of them look at Bitcoin and they're like, nah, I don't think that's interesting for me now, or I don't understand it. It's complicated. It's too far away. But that was the same when, television came up or the internet came up or credit cards came up. This takes these new, very disruptive technologies take decades to get a hold. So I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add to it, I think the average person focuses when they hear about Bitcoin, they kind of get steered away by the price of it instead of being mind blown by the scarcity of it. And I think going back to what you mentioned, like it's a hard concept for people to understand what Bitcoin is, and especially on the scarcity part, we've never had as humanity anything that was the physical realm, and as well as definitely the digital realm. So I think most people just think, it's just a speculative tool. It's just, a bubble. It's how many people say it's going to die. It's going to go to zero. But those people didn't put their proof of work, have no idea what this protocol is. And
No.
it's definitely not going to zero.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
all of the people that don't have like these 90% in Europe that don't have Bitcoin, they are on this level. But also, I would say more than 50% of the people that already have Bitcoin, like our users, I talked to some of them and they ask me like, oh, what do you think? Is it a good time to sell now? A good time to buy? And I'm like, if you understand it, there's never a good time
time
to
to sell.
sell. Why would you sell? What for?
That's
What
true.
other asset do you want to have? If you understand, it's the best asset. So yeah, they don't understand. Most of people, even that have Bitcoin, don't understand when they first have Bitcoin. The good thing is they usually never sell anything and go out again. Like they stay in it somehow. They stay interested. They keep following it. And then I saw many stories of people that kind of started, speculated a bit, bought, sold, whatever. But then after a few years, because they have some skin in the game, they consume more education materials, etc. And then at one point they get it, and then they start looking at it not as speculation or an investment or a trading thing, but like as a savings thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's super nice to see these people then going from a no coiner to Bitcoiner. Not like Bitcoin maxi and super
Yeah. Yeah.
enthusiastic, but they understand that Bitcoin is the best way for them to save money on the long run.
For sure. And, just to add to it, I'm not particularly a big fan of the term orange pill, because it's not like you take this magic orange pill and suddenly you're a Bitcoiner and your whole mind is rewired. I like to frame it more as an orange seed. You plant the seed and then you need to water that seed, because if you don't water it, that flower is never going to blossom out. So you need to put in, your study work. May that be reading books, checking out YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, and just further questioning things and kind of unraveling it for yourself. Because personally, for me, it took me like 4 years to differentiate Bitcoin and all crypto. And I was day and night on it. Like, it's not like I from time to time came to it. So it's a long process. The people that actually just like get it early on and miss the whole crypto shenanigans, like, kudos to you guys, because you are really the unicorns. Because most people like learn about Bitcoin or some alts, and then they're all, checking which is the next Bitcoin, where's the next, as you said, the next 10x where they can make some more fiat, which at the end of the day, same, I get people asking me like, oh, GG, is a good time to sell now? We're at 100K. And I'm like, sell to what? Like, Bitcoin's a one-way streak. Like, you go to save yourself, not to go back to the fiat standard, which is just devaluated every day. But yeah, once again, it's been 16 years, not 60 years or 600 years. Like, Bitcoin's here fighting a Goliath, which banking's been around for hundreds of years. And I still think it's going to be here no matter as much as we all don't want to see banks anymore, I think for the rest of our lives and beyond, they're still going to be here. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, but still, what's been achieved in 16 years, that it's a nearly $2 trillion asset, and it's in the top 10 biggest market cap assets in the world, is fascinating. Like if there's a sign to show you that this is here to stay, I don't know what else is.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Very well said. I mean, I remember 10 years ago when I got into it, it was $500 and no one cared, literally no one. There in Switzerland, maybe there were a few hundred people that were like interested and exchanging in forums about this thing, Bitcoin. And then 10 years later, yeah, as you said, countries are now owning Bitcoin. Huge companies are owning Bitcoin. It's, as you said, yeah, top 10 market cap, etc. So yeah, it makes you think very in a very promising way to the future, and people that think that this is still going away or that there might be a second best. So if there would be a better thing than Bitcoin, it would have probably been invented in the last 15 years, no?
Probably. Or maybe they're still waiting for it, for Satoshi Nakamoto 2.0 to release something.
Yeah. What about the flippening, right? So they talked about the flippening
I think that's dead. Until you mentioned it now, Julian, I haven't heard it probably in a year about the flippening.
Yeah. It's interesting to bring these stories up again, you know.
True.
2017, there was the big fork, and people thought, you know, now it's over with Bitcoin, and then after that the flippening, and then which one is the next Bitcoin, etc. All these ICOs and everything, and Bitcoin just survived everything. If you look at the 10-year chart, you compare it to any other asset.
It's one way. It's Bitcoin. The honey badger doesn't care what government approves it, what government bans it. It just does its own thing. TikTok next block. Here we go.
Yeah, everything trends to zero.
True. And I wanted to bring back one thing you mentioned, Julian, which is very interesting about restoring your private keys with the facial recognition. Are you going to call that feature seed face instead of seed phrase?
It's actually a good idea. We might. If I can steal this expression from you, then
go ahead. I give you full in Bitcoin. We're all like you see. I support open source, so there's no IPs here. So if you want to do it as a seed face, go for it. But that's like what came to my mind when you were talking about the facial recognition. I was just thinking, wow, you're switching the seed phrase to a seed face. But jokes aside, I think that's a really good idea, because some people, no matter how many backups they have, they're just careless and they lose it. And as we all know, that there is no forget password on Bitcoin. You lose those seed phrases, you lose that cold storage, that Bitcoin is gone forever. Even though probably some listeners which are anti KYC wouldn't like it too much, but hey, like you offer it as an option. If you want it as a backup, you're free to do it. And I think that's a very nice thing, because I agree with you. Like, as easy as it is to keep 12 or 24 words, like some people are just careless with it. And you know, I think forever with Bitcoin, we're going to have new developments and new additions, which will make it easier to manage and hold and control. I had a few weeks ago, I had Webworthy from BTC Pay Server. He was talking about when he got into Bitcoin in over a decade, 2012, pre-seed phrase era, he used to store his Bitcoins. So he had like one Bitcoin per CD. So he would have like racks of CDs with his Bitcoins. And he was like, thinking back now, he was like, man, that was insane. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, like how far we've come in like a decade, and what's going to happen the next, you know, innovation and development. So that was really interesting. I haven't heard until you mentioned it now, like anyone else of thinking of how else can we, you know, back up and secure it. So that'll be interesting to see how you guys develop that.
Yeah, they're different. And that's great that there are different options that are being worked on in the community. You know, connecting it to the face is one. Of course, collaborative custody, where you can have backups. You can send links to other people that you trust, and then they are your backup. You can go see them, scan the QR code, and you have it again. Yeah, of course, the traditional 12 words thing, and there are many other very interesting backup solutions. And I think, you know, in 5 or 10 years, this will not be a problem anymore. I think in 5 years already, it should be easier, and we're working on that. It should be easier to use a self-custodial wallet than to use a custodial exchange. So people will actually, because now the argument is, I like Bitcoin and self-custody, etc., but it's too complicated and I don't want to take the responsibility. Let's use Coinbase or something because I trust them, but it's a counterparty risk, right? So they take the counterparty risk and all the negative aspects, especially what we talked about before, the regulatory front. It will become more and more negative and cumbersome to use these, and it will become easier and easier to use self-custodial Bitcoin providers. So that's definitely going to happen, in my opinion, which is great because then the network becomes more resilient as more and more people have Bitcoin in self-custody.
Yeah, no, I hope so. And to any listeners listening now and agreeing with Julian that, self-custody is not the easiest thing. If I may, I'll do a personal shill. Gigi does self-custody mentoring. So if you want a guided, step-by-step process, then reach out to Gigi. I'd be happy to help. But now to sway back to I would say one of my closing questions is, Julian, since you've had like such an incredible entrepreneurial journey in Bitcoin, going, as we said, raising the initial 20K to 5 years later, raising in your latest seed round raise of 12 million. What is like some advice you could give to young entrepreneurs that are looking to start their journey and building a Bitcoin business? What would be some tips you would share from your experience?
Well, it's important to really solve a problem. Many entrepreneurs, especially in the Bitcoin space, they work on cool stuff that no one really uses, or at least not a critical mass. You need to fall in love with a problem, not the solution. Many people, they build some technology, build some app that then no one really uses, or maybe a few hundred people, but like it's not something that really solves a problem. A good sustainable company can only come from really solving a problem, and make sure then you solve it in a way that is nice for people to use, that people really want to use it, even pay for it, and even tell their friends about it. So that's then the second step. First step is really understand the problem, and the second step is build a solution that people are willing to pay for and willing to refer. That's pretty much all the magic. The rest of it will come. Well, okay, and then there's a third one. Also, especially Bitcoin entrepreneurs, I see that they're not really thinking about the business model. They're not really thinking about, this needs to make money. They're way too much in this, whole open source movement, which is great. But as an entrepreneur, if you want to build a sustainable business, you need to make money.
Cash flow is a key part in that.
Yeah, at one point you need to, or at least you need to show that your business can get more money in that flows out. And many entrepreneurs don't think about this.
True. Amazing. Well, Julian, where can we send our listeners who want to follow you and Relai and all the developments are happening? Where's the best place to send them?
Well, X, of course, X Twitter, Relai is there. I am there. I also reply to DMs. So does the Relai account. Then there's the Relai website, of course, relay.app, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter, weekly newsletter. It's pretty cool. We do some videos every week around what's happening in Bitcoin to stay up to date. And Excellent. We're on LinkedIn as well. We're even on Instagram, and we try to be everywhere. But yeah, X and our website is probably the best way to keep in touch.
Perfect. For all the listeners, we'll have all the links in the show notes. And my last question, Julian, you're going to be attending this year's BTC Prague, because that's where I met you last year. You're going to be there this year?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
Perfect. Likewise. Well, if you guys want to meet Gigi and Julian in person, then definitely get your tickets for BTC Prague. And as well, you can get a 10% discount with BTCSTORY. Another small shill. But Julian, thanks a lot for taking the time. It's been a pleasure having you on. Once again, congrats to you and the team with all the incredible work you have guys done in such a short amount of time. I mean, 5 years might seem like a lot, but in the big picture of things, it's not that long ago. And, you guys are killing it. So all the best of luck, and I'm super excited to see all the next things that will be coming out of Relai.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gigi, for having me. There's definitely still a lot of things on our plate, a lot to do in the next 5 years. So yeah, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and we'll have you back in the future as your Bitcoin journey develops, and I'm sure there's going to be some nice insights that you can share with our audience. All the best of luck until next time.
For sure. Thank you.